Welcome to Practically Political. Happy summer. I'm Dave Spencer.
And I'm Carrie Sheffield. Let's get to it. All right, Dave. So there's a fascinating character who I've been tracking, Vivek Ramaswamy. He's rising in the polls quickly, and he's on track to replace Ron DeSantis as number 2 behind Donald Trump. If you look at the betting markets, he's already there. What do you think about Vivek? And do you think he has a shot at the GOP nomination? And if not that, what about the VP for Trump?
Well, let me sort of do the micro and then the macro. First of all, I would say the reason that it's more that DeSantis is sinking more than he's rising. So I think they're both at about 12%, and DeSantis has come down as his presidential campaign continues to flounder. And anyone who doubts me, Gavin Newsom has been itching to debate him for months, and he's turned it, and he hasn't even responded. But now that his campaign is floundering, he's actually said that he'd be willing to do it. So that shows you where he is. But answering your question, I have a real issue with someone. Again, these people are trying to be Trumpier than Trump, or to the right of Trump, or Trump without the drama, or Trump light. And I don't think any of it is going to work. I think essentially that if you're going to beat Donald Trump, you have to run through him, run over him. That's what Chris Christie is trying to do, and to a lesser extent, Asa Hutchinson is trying to do. But as far as Vivek goes, I really don't care for his policies, and we'll talk about that in a second. I do give him credit. He's a good communicator. He's charismatic. I think he is someone that has been able to make an impact, and he's been kind of the darling of conservative radio. But if you start doing even a partial dive into his policies, you'll see that he wants to get rid of the FBI, he wants to get rid of the IRS, the Department of Education, and he says that we're having a national identity crisis, which again is what he blames on what he calls I love these terms people make up, the new secular religions, which is not just the wokeism and the gender identity, but also is climatism and covitism, whatever those two things may be. So, it's a real head scratcher too, because he talks about the youth vote being so important, but he wants to raise the voting age to 25. We just raised it from 20 or lowered it from 21 down to 18 with the 26th Amendment. I thought the idea was to have as many people vote as possible. Well, that's at least the Democratic idea these days. It's not the Republican idea. So overall, I'm not very impressed. And the thing that I'm least impressed is he won't take on Trump, and he wants to pardon Trump. And, again, if you're going to pardon someone, there needs to be some accountability. The only other example, obviously, is Richard Nixon, but who not only resigned, but he also said that he let the American people down. I have not seen one scintilla of accountability from Donald Trump for his entire life. So I don't expect to see that happening now. But what say you?
I like him a lot. I think he's a breath of fresh air. And I think he's something different. Like he's unique. And just a few little notes on the raising the voting age. So he said he wants to raise it to 25, but he will give exceptions if you are serving in the military, if you're serving as a first responder, or if you can pass the same citizenship test that is required to become a U.S. citizen. And I think that's actually pretty innovative, because it shows that he's rewarding people who actually take American democracy seriously. And part of why we lowered the age to 18 was because we had so many young men primarily serving in the military, and they were, giving their lives. But now we're seeing enrollment and recruitment declining. So I think what he's doing by signaling with this is that we actually want to make it something that is, that it is something of value. And looking at other countries, like in Israel, for example, they have 2 years of mandatory military service for everybody, male or female, in the IDF. And I think that promotes this value of service and sacrifice. So that's really what he's getting at. And I think it's great. I also think for the, basically he wants to streamline. When you're talking about more than 2 million people working for the federal government, and the fastest growth areas in GDP right now its government. That's a recipe for a sluggish country to become more like Europe and these countries that are way too top heavy. So I think that's really what he's getting at. And he says he wants to get rid of duplications, that a lot of these same agencies are doing the same thing. So streamline it. And
Such as what? What's duplicative? What should we get rid of, or what does he want to get rid of?
Well, you mentioned the FBI, for example, and he said, okay, well, a lot of these same duties are actually already just move these same personnel. Well, first of all, he says there's a large swath of the FBI management that isn't even agents. They're not even gathering intel. They're just bureaucrats. So he said, just basically remove that layer and move the actual agents and the intelligence gatherers into other areas. Like, for example, even just like moving them into, Treasury or Homeland Security, or like there's a lot of people or agencies that are doing the same thing, and it would just add an investigative arm to it. That's what he's saying. And look, I'm not saying all his proposals are perfect, but I do like his mentality that we need to streamline. And that's what I think is remarkable, is that he built this $9 billion publicly traded company from scratch. And he's only 37 years old. He's the child of immigrants from India. He's brown and he's Hindu. So he cuts against the grain of all these false claims of like white Christian nationalism, because he understands American exceptionalism. So I don't know. I could keep going on.
Well, a couple of things. I mean, you're conflating two issues when you talk about national service and you talk about voting. Okay, yes, Israel does, with the exception of the Hasidics, require service. And I've said for a long time that I think everyone, when they graduate from high school in the U.S., should do a year of national service. It can be the military, it can be the Peace Corps, it can be volunteering for inner city kids, it can be Doctors Without Borders, whatever. But I think service is important. In my parents' generation, everybody went into the service. That's what you did. So we agree on that. But this idea that you're going to limit the ability of people to vote, once again, is just going along with all these other things that have been done in the States, where they try to make it harder for people to vote. Again, we don't take rights away in this country. And I figure after the Dobbs decision, the Republican Party would have learned that. We expand rights. So, if he wants to have the citizenship test and all this stuff for 18-year-olds, well, we can talk about that. And he also talks about, well, the youth vote is so important. I'm going to have like a 1980 Reagan landslide, which first of all is clueless, because this country is so divided that even Ronald Reagan, who, by the way, would be tossed out of today's Republican Party on his derriere. But even if Ronald Reagan were running today, yes, he would. He was a pragmatist. There's no room for pragmatists in the party. But anyway, he wouldn't have that same landslide today, because the country is so polarized. So it's detached from reality. And again, how are you going to get the youth vote if you're making it harder for them to vote? They're going to come out and support you, even if they can still vote. It's just ludicrous. It's psychotic. So I think that, and the other issue too, is that, again, Donald Trump has proven people running a business is not like running the government. Businessmen don't make good presidents. In fact, congressmen don't make very good presidents. Governors make good presidents. We need a governor. I think Joe Biden should get out of the way and let Roy Cooper, Andy Bashir, or even Gretchen Whitmer run. And I think, obviously, Trump is so noxious, we don't even need to go into that. So I think the guy is a charlatan. I don't think he has the experience to do it. But we'll see. As I said, in this race, anything goes. Would I prefer him over Trump? Yes, but I would prefer any nominee over Trump.